Is Elias Pettersson going to make $27 million a year? I don't know about that, but one guy who deserves $27 million a year, Blake Creamer, okay? Creams and Dreams joins the show from the Apples and Ginos podcast. That's coming up next year on Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, Canucks writer and part-time credentialed media member for Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into the show, we got to thank you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. It's your team every day. Make sure you go subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Oh, hey, man, health is wealth, okay? Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Coming up on today's show, as I mentioned, having Blake Creamer on the show from the Apples and Ginos podcast, the fantasy guru hockey guy himself, to talk all things Canucks and fantasy hockey. Also got to talk a little Elias Pettersson off the jump here, though. Before we do that, I got to introduce my brother, my twin. Some people say we look alike. I disagree. Kyle Bound, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. Subscribe, hit the like button on this video right here and follow us wherever you stream your podcast. Man, oh man, I can't wait for today's discussion. I just can't wait, man, because my mind's racing. I know we've been all over the place with this whole Pettersson debate and the contract. You know, one day it's 13 million, one day it's, oh, maybe he'll take a discount because, we got to build a team. And now today we're talking about this guy potentially being the highest paid player in the NHL going into the season after this season. Based on Trevor Beggs' his projections, I'm just being serious, bro. It's a possibility. It really is. And something else came to light before we got together for today's episode. And it made me think. It made me think about how maybe he can make the most money in the NHL and it won't affect the bottom end of the roster too much. For real. Again, Trevor Beggs, Kyle Bowen, talking everything Canucks. And then again, we do talk to Blake Creamer about the future of fantasy hockey. Am I onto something? Can fantasy hockey be cooler if we only care about the weekends? When we talk to the expert about that, it may be a thing. Who knows? Beggsy, what were you going to say there?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you. Like, we'll save that because we talked about it with Blake. But yeah, I think, there's all different kinds of fantasy hockey that can work, right? We see that with fantasy football and all the different formats. So, Kyle, you're onto something, man. It's a multi-million-dollar idea. I hope you make millions and millions off of it.
Dude, I would definitely give you, if I made like $10 million a year, I'd definitely give you $1 million every year off of that. Because you're my brother, man. I care about you and I care about your family, for real. I care about your family. And then I would give a lot of millions to the people who are hungry because you got to take care of your neighbors, man. The world would be a better place if everyone was fed. And then we can build off of that. It's just the truth. Anyways, hockey show and Pettersson. Okay, so let's say Pettersson reaches the next level. I think he can. Beggsy thinks he can too, okay? Maybe he's going to shoot the puck more. Maybe he's going to, get that point total up to 105, 110. And maybe, just maybe, he sticks around, 102. Maybe that's the case as well. But while doing that, he's also top 3 when it comes to the best two-way centers in hockey, which is an anomaly. I think you brought up the name last week when we were having a brewski, Sergei Fedorov. What if he's that guy? So he could get 100 points again and, again, be a Selke finalist. And it's like, boom, this guy does deserve the blank check. And the Canucks are going to have to give it. So let's say he becomes the highest paid player in hockey. It's an 8-year deal, $13 million, 13 and a half, whatever the deal is. It's not a 4-year deal. It's an 8-year deal, $13.5 million. Is that the most horrible thing when it comes to building a team when we are seeing a development? It's been happening. There's that like lower middle class of NHL players that are no longer making $2 million a year. It's not 2.2 over 3 years. It's $1 million. It's $800,000. It's 1.125 per year. We've seen it with the Pius Suiters, Thomas Tatars, the Tyler Motts, etc. I know there's more cases out there, but I do think there's a small chance that lower middle class of players that are really important in a deep playoff run, those guys got to do their job. Those depth players really do their thing. Again, maybe they're not making $2 million. Maybe they're not making $3 million. And that allows the best of the best in the sport to get paid what they deserve. And I think a lot of this has to stem from something I heard from 32 Thoughts, but also that Alan Walsh tweet when he was talking about how, oh, look at Joe Burrow. He's making $50 million a year and the highest paid player in hockey, or Connor McDavid's making 12 and a half and Matthews is making 13 next season. Like, this is not right. The best of the best deserve to get paid the most. And I do think Pettersson is banking on himself and he wants to be put in that place, not just because of the paycheck, but because of the accolades. Like, he wants to be known as one of the best players in the generation. And if he backs it up this season in a contract year and he picks up the points, he's one of the best two-way players in the league. And most importantly, the team wins and they make the playoffs and they make a little bit of noise. Dude, it's not going to surprise me if, again, he signs the biggest contract in NHL history in that moment. It's not going to be the biggest contract a couple years from now, but in the moment, based on where the league is going, I could see it happening.
Yeah, honestly, I love the bullishness on Pettersson that you're bringing, Kyle. I'll say it would surprise me a bit if he surpassed Matthew. Like, his season, like, he's basically got to put up that 110, 115, 120 points. He's got to be in that top 3 in the Selke conversation. He's probably going to win the Hart Trophy as well. Like, he's really got to stack the case, right? Like, Matthews didn't win the Selke, but he won the Hart and had 60 plus goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Pettersson's got to have that kind of season if he's going to make that kind of money. But to your point about stars getting paid, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think we saw the Canucks get crushed under the Jim Benning in terms of having like way too many middle of the road contracts, guys making $3-4 million who weren't really providing a lot of value. I'd much rather pay a star like Pettersson $13 million than have a bunch of $3-4 million guys on the team, because Pettersson's really what's going to drive the bus here.
And remember, key point, I'm not talking about a 4-year deal at the end of the season. I'm talking about 8 years, locking the guy up until he's in his early 30s, giving the Canucks, again, one of the best players on their roster for a decade, close to a decade. And it's important. And I guess I got to throw this alternative question your way. Let's say, again, Pettersson only picks up 100 points, only 100 points. Again, he's around 102, 99, 103, but he's nominated for the Selke. What's the number? Because, again, we're talking about an outlier type of player. You could argue that in some cases, that Selke type of player who now is going to be putting up 100 points is just as important as like a Hart Trophy winner in the regular season when it comes to winning games in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think if that's the scenario that plays out, he's going to ask for Matthews money and probably end up with McDavid money at $12.5 billion if he gets to that level.
There you go. Okay. So we're the number, again, it keeps fluctuating. It's like 13, it's like 12, it's like, oh, maybe 10 and a half or 11. And now based again on that tweet and what Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman were saying about the lower middle class player kind of evaporating when it comes to them making multi-millions, it's making me think that it could be possible to still build a team if your pro scouting is really good and you're patient with contracts when it comes to dishing them out to those types of players, all while paying your best players, 12%, 13% of the overall cap. I know it's a dangerous thing, and I know I'm throwing out some really chaotic numbers, but keep in mind, I am talking about potentially hitting Pettersson with an 8-year deal. And it's not like a 4-year bridge deal. It's like an 8-year deal worth that much over well, I guess after he puts up a somewhat historic season this season, a guy who's banking on himself. Beggsy, would you ever bank on yourself like Pettersson?
Yeah, I really got to deliver the goods here on Locked On Canucks if that's the case. But one guy I am banking on is Blake Creamer, okay? I haven't done my fantasy hockey draft yet, but this guy knows his stuff. We're going to get into it next year on Locked On Canucks, everything fantasy hockey with Blake Creamer, host of the Apples and Ginos podcast. Let's throw to that now here on Locked On Canucks.
People, before we get back to the show, baby, I got to tell you that new episodes of Locked On Canucks will be available wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube at 4:20 p.m. for no reason at all, okay? New episodes every day at 4:20 p.m. Again, wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube. Let's get back to the show. Okay, we're back on Locked On Canucks, and we got a special guest, okay? This dude's from Langley, he's from Surrey, he's from the Vancouver Island now, but deep down we know it. We know this guy's from Surrey, okay? Blake Creamer from the Apple and Ginos podcast. If you haven't seen it yet or watched it, you got to do it, okay? It's a really fun way to absorb hockey. It is fantasy related. But again, if you're just a hockey fan, you don't got to watch fantasy. It all connects. It all connects. Doesn't it? Doesn't it?
Yeah, you know what? That's just a great way to put that, buddy. I love that.
For sure, man. For sure. We also got Trevor Beggs here too. We're gonna get to that idea. That idea that I was talking about a couple weeks ago about fantasy hockey and how maybe I'm just being a little ignorant, but I just think it's missing something. It's a little boring. It's a little bit too much. It's a little bit. I gotta focus on this every day. Why can't fantasy hockey just be important on the weekend, on the Saturday? Trevor added maybe on the Sunday too. Make it more like fantasy football. Do you feel as if that may make fantasy hockey a little bit more important, not only in my life, but just in general? Again, if they copy what fantasy football does?
Oh God. You know what? I don't know. You might be talking to the wrong guy there, because for me, I need to get into those details, man. What the hell am I supposed to do with the rest of my week? Oh my God. But yeah, you know what you're saying is actually, it's kind of a cool idea. But there's just so much going on that changes from week to week in hockey, and there's just so much to analyze. So actually, a buddy of mine, he does an interesting fantasy league where they only count goals.
Whoa.
So you pick your team, but it's just goals. It's nothing else. So that, I don't know, that to me may be a little sexier, but I don't know. Are you guys do fantasy yourselves? Are you planning on making this weekly league or what?
Oh yeah, I've been in fantasy hockey for a long time, and Kyle used to be into it. I think the Canucks started sucking, and then Kyle just fell in love with hockey in general. But
Yeah,
but we were in a fantasy hockey league for a couple of years. I remember, I think I was second place at least 2 years, maybe even 3 years in a row. I just could never get over the hump. I still love it. I think there's room for both. When I think about fantasy football, you got super flex, you got daily fantasy, you got so many options. But I think Kyle's idea, which is really kind of stack it on the weekends, and the way I look at it too is, the NHL could play 14 games, have 28 teams playing on Saturday, and then on Sunday kind of have your Sunday night football, have 2 games to kind of bring it home. So I mean, I like the idea. I think it appeals more to the casual fan. But obviously, the fantasy hockey nerds / degenerates like yourself, Blake, I think that that might sound like it's not such a good idea.
You know what? I'm taking that as a compliment. Nerd degenerate, book it. All right, that's where we're at. I love that. I was saying to Kyle offline there, when you tell people you do fantasy hockey or a fantasy hockey podcast, their eyes just glaze over. What the hell are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, shots per 60, goals, they don't want to hear that. So I think you might have some traction there with your idea, boys.
Yeah, I just feel as if it's not as sexy as fantasy football. And I think the only complaint that I do hear, the only complaint is oh, you got to set your lineup every day. That's the only complaint you hear. So it's oh, is there another way to tackle that issue by, again, making the weekends only matter, aka stealing from football in general? But again, I said it off the top. Maybe I'm just being ignorant, and Trevor said it off the top too. Maybe I transformed into a casual hockey fan when the Canucks started sucking. I just hopped off the wagon. I got too depressed. Didn't want that thing in my life and in my mind. And again, I'm just being ignorant. Maybe fantasy hockey is super cool, and I just got to get back into it the normal way. Let's talk about fantasy hockey and the Vancouver Canucks. We talked about it earlier on the episode, and I want your projections for Elias Pettersson this year. What do you have him doing, not only in fantasy hockey, really, but, in hockey in general this season?
Yeah. Super excited for Elias Pettersson this season. I mean, obviously the guy just went ballistic last season. And I think diehard fans could see that coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
100-point season, maybe I didn't see that coming, but he was just firing on all cylinders last season. So this season, I think that we can sort of expect, I projected him for 92 points this season. But honestly, everything he did last season was sustainable to me. Besides, there's this thing that I follow in fantasy called IPP. It's individual points percentage. And what that means is the percentage of points that he is in on when he's on the ice, right? And his IPP, his individual points percentage, was top 5 in the league. So that says to me, this guy, when he's out there, he's running the show. Everything's going through him, right? So that's an exciting thing. And that boosted way up this last season. So I think it's sustainable to me. So 92 points, I'm liking that. One of the things about Pettersson that I think might regress a little bit is I've heard Tocchet say that he doesn't want to use Pettersson or Miller on the penalty kill anymore. So, Pettersson and Miller, they both led the league in shorthanded points. They had 9 points each shorthanded. So I think that might go away. And that's sort of where I'm getting the 92 points. But dang, this man's a freaking unit. I love Pettersson, and I'm excited about him this season.
Hey, maybe he can make up that production on the power play, though, right? I mean,
Well, yeah,
I
that's
think the
true.
Canucks with Bo Horvat out of the picture last year, the power play was still efficient, but it wasn't as good as it was previously. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm as bullish as you on Elias Pettersson, maybe even more bullish because I think 102 points. It's going to be hard to hit again, but I also think this guy, he could get in the stratosphere of 110 plus. I think that's a realistic projection for Elias Pettersson. In a contract year, I'm a big motivation guy, okay? I think Elias Pettersson, he's motivated to get paid. So, 50 goals, 70 apples, 120 points might not be out
Oh
of the
my
picture.
God, I love where you're going with this, buddy. Yeah,
Hey.
that you know what? As a Canucks fan, that would be freaking awesome, man. That would be incredible.
Hey, speaking of freaking awesome, I don't know if you know this, but Beggsy and I, we watched Pedersen's first game together. And bro, for real, it was like one of our strongest moments as brothers in this thing called our lives. And maybe that's why we have this not only fascination towards Pedersen, but this utmost appreciation for what his potential could be. Now, do you think that he quote unquote regresses in points because Kuzmenko doesn't have the offensive year that he had last year as well when it comes to goal scoring? I'm curious to see where you see Kuzmenko projecting this season.
Yeah, there's a potential. I mean, Kuzmenko is actually kind of a contentious topic in fantasy. I like to call him Big Kuzi, and that's the way I like to refer to Kuzmenko. But also, he's got the best head of hair in the biz. All right, so let's agree on that. You guys with me on that?
Yeah.
Oh, Brock Besser might have something to say about that.
Oh,
but-
okay. He's got the best flow, but Kuzmenko, I don't know. Well, potato, right, Trevor? All right, let's. Yeah, for me, Kuzmenko is going to regress a little bit, and one of the main issues there is his shooting percentage was freaking ridiculous. I mean, he shot at like 27%. People don't do that over a whole season. I mean, do you remember Kuzmenko last season? The amount of like tap in goals that he had where Pettersson was just ripping it off his stick that's like right in the crease. I mean, how many goals did he have like that? So I think that's going to regress a little bit. You can't rely on that type of efficiency for a player, but I think Kuzmenko he's going to be more a part of the offense this season. He's going to get more minutes, and Kuzmenko didn't shoot very much last year. So I think there's a potential that he shoots some more. So I projected Kuzmenko for 68 points. And that's a conservative projection, right? I think there's some headroom there for that to go up because he's attached to Petey, right? That's the 1-2 that they've got there. So, I mean, anyone with that kind of access to Pettersson has a really good chance at delivering some good offensive production, but love Big Kuzi. I think he could smash that projection.
Why not? Why 68? Why not 69 points?
Nice. You know what? Maybe I'll go back into my projections. Maybe I can squeeze another point in there. You know what? Missed opportunity, buddy. Missed opportunity.
No, that's the truth, man. Missed opportunity there with 69. 69 is overrated, okay? For real, man. I've been saying it for a long time. The hockey community loves 69. It's like their favorite position in the world of intercourse. And I'm just like, dude, 69 is overrated. Way too messy, okay? Way too messy. Way too many things going on, okay? For real. Anywho, something that Trevor will not disagree on, though, is him and I kind of coming to terms with Brock Besser being on that top line as well. Is that the only way Brock Besser picks up a lot of points this season? I'm curious to see again where you have him projecting, not only in the lineup, but again at the end of the season when it comes to playing 82 games and that point total.
Oh yeah. I'm so excited about Besser this season. And this is like kind of a homer take too. Like I really want Besser to succeed. Obviously the things that he's gone through over the past few years, like go, have an ailing father and go out and try and play like one of the hardest sports in the world. You know what I mean? And try and succeed. Like it's just, you can't do it. Right. So I think hopefully he's over the hump there mentally. And I love just that he kind of went to Patrick Alvin and was like, don't trade me. Right. I want to be here. Don't trade me. I love that. He's in good shape. He's healthy. I think Besser, first off, he's going to be a staple in the top six. I think he's going to play with JT Miller and whoever they have on the left side there on the second line. But I've got Besser for 30 goals and 38 assists. So 68 points as well. That's a bullish projection on Besser. But I think if he gets 30 and 30, that's a successful season for Besser. And I really want to see that. And it's just a player I'm excited about. And you can get him really late in your drafts.
Yeah, not a lot of love for Brock Besser, and I've been kind of saying this here on Locked On Canucks for a while. Shout out to the everydayers; they probably know this, but I think the way to get the most out of Brock Besser and the way for him to kind of hit your projection there, Blake, is to put him on the top line with Kuzmenko and Pettersson. And there was some pushback in our comments, but for me, you got to get the most out of Brock Besser. I mean, this guy's making a pretty penny for the Vancouver Canucks. He's always had a lot going on in his life, but he has underperformed. I think to get the most out of Brock Besser, you got to stick him on the top line with Pettersson and Kuzmenko. I just want to see it for a little bit. Like, just try it out, Rick Tocchet. Come on. I'm pretty tired of seeing Brock Besser with JT Miller or Sheldon Dries. Stick Besser with Pettersson, where he's had success in the past. And I think that line could be one of the most dangerous lines in hockey if they get the chance to work their magic.
I think it's really key that they get him on the power play, even more than the top line. Like, get him on that power play. He deserves to be there. Anthony Beauvillier, no. Thank you for your service, my man. Get the hell out of my sight. Go to power play 2. All right. Brock Besser, we need him on the top power play, whipping it around with the big boys. All right. And that's where I think a lot of that offense can come. And I like him with Miller there. I think he has some familiarity there. Beauvillier played well on that line with Pettersson and Kuzmenko, but whatever. I just want to see Besser get an opportunity. I want to see more deployment for that man.
Yeah, and that's a good observation. I mean, I really haven't even connected those dots, having Besser be the fourth forward consistently on that power play. And that's going to, lead to points, but more importantly, lead to confidence. And we just need Brock Besser as a Canuck fan, not even a fantasy hockey fan, to just be consistent for 99% of the season and not be invisible for spurts. And if that's the case, the Canucks are a better team. They're also a better team if JT Miller gets closer to 99 points again in this thing called his life. Again, we're just throwing this out to you. What are your projections for JT Miller this season?
Oh my, he's a beefer. He's a beefer with cheese. Love me some JT Miller, especially in category leagues. So I think, I've got a kind of a conservative projection on JT Miller as well, but it's difficult. All these projections too, like, we only have a little bit of time with Tocchet, right? So we have a small sample size of what it looks like with Tocchet. So it is kind of a new coach situation coming in. So you can't rely on what we've seen historically, but I mean, JT Miller played better once Tocchet got in there, right? Like pretty much everybody did, right? So I've got Miller for 31 goals, 57 assists. So, what is that? 88, 87? I can't do math. All right. But he's great on the power play. He hits. I've got him projected for 178 hits. My God, buddy, calm down. All right. And just a ton of deployment. So I'm really big on Miller. I mean, and I'm excited. This is not what we're talking about, but I'm excited that Hughes kind of got the captaincy. I didn't really want Miller to get that. I think he's going to be better as kind of a vocal leader without the spotlight, because he's a bit of a dingus, as we know. But I'm excited about the team for sure.
A beefer with cheese and a dingus. That's an interesting combination, right?
That's
there.
a combo.
Not many guys can pull that off. Hey, and speaking of combo meal, like you talked about category league, I mean, the one league I'm in is a 16-teamer, and it's a category league. So, I think JT Miller could have some value there. I think, Blake, people they shouldn't screw around with their fantasy hockey lineup. And obviously, if they need some fantasy hockey advice, you're the guy that they should listen to. Let's talk about some more projects on the other side, especially with Quinn Hughes. But first, speaking of things you don't want to screw around with, your health, okay? You don't want to screw around with your health. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping to have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical, it's simple, baby. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON.
Okay. We back, people. Locked On Canucks, Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs, but more importantly, Blake Creamer, okay? Creamer. Yo, I'm calling you Creams, dude. I'm calling you Mr. Creams, dude.
You know what? That's nice.
Creams and Dreams.
Creams and Dreams? Title of your sex tape. Whoa!
No, it's just the truth, man. It's just the truth. We're loving the energy, and this is just a consistent thing from Blake, okay? Apple and Ginos podcast. It's a fantasy hockey podcast. It's a hockey nerd podcast. It's just like the ultimate hockey extravaganza podcast. Go check it out on YouTube and wherever you stream your podcasts. Again, a lot of fun, okay? Fun is nice. You need fun in your life, and we're having fun here talking about projections. One of my favorite things to do as a sports fan. Now, before we go and talk about Hughes and Hronek, then let you go, I'm just curious, did you play a lot of like NHL growing up? And were you a big like fantasy draft type of person while playing GM mode? Because you just seem like that type of dude, man.
Yeah, you know what? Even goes further than that. When I was in high school, I went to an art school, as I was telling you there, Kyle, and we didn't have any sports. But what we did have was a ball hockey intramural league, and our gym teacher that put it on, she took it really seriously. Like she did full statistics. We had fantasy drafts, so the top 6 scorers of the league would draft their team of this list. So I would do a draft every year because I was one of the captains. And I think that's kind of what happened, man. And then I ended up a couple years later doing a pool with my stepdad, and we ended up winning. And that's all that it takes, right? And then now I'm addicted, man. Now I have a problem, but that's fine.
But you're helping other people out along the way, right? With the Apples and Ginos podcast, and you're enlightening us here too, man. So I'm curious. I'm kind of curious for more of enlightenment from the creams and dreams. Quinn Hughes, man, Quinn Hughes. Like you look at the list right now, this guy's considered top 5 in terms of Norris voting, and a lot of that comes from his ability to put up points. How many points do you see Quinn Hughes get next season? And could he, for once, crest the double-digit mark in goals?
Well, I don't have him for double digits, but you know what? He doesn't need to do that. Like, I've got him for 9 goals. So right under there, Trevor, sorry about that. And 73 assists. Boom. All right. So 80, what is that? 81, 82 points. I think it's going to be a big season for Quinn Hughes. And he's the type of guy too, that I think is going to thrive with this captaincy, right? This is going to elevate him. He's not going to fold under the pressure. He seems really mentally strong to me. So I think that he's going to thrive under that pressure, and he's going to get all the opportunities. So even strike minutes, probably 3.5 to 4 minutes on the power play. Like, this guy's insane, right? So I'm a big fan of Quinn Hughes, and I after I projected him, I was really surprised that it was over 80 points. And I think that is doable, right? That seems like kind of crazy, but I mean, look what he did last year, right? Like, he doesn't need to do that much more to get over 80 points. So yeah, I'm really excited about Hughes for sure.
Yeah, honestly, it's I just said Pettersson's going to get 120 points. So I mean, I don't want to be too grandiose here, but for Quinn Hughes, it's like I watched what Roman Josi did with 96 points. I watched what Erik Karlsson did, hitting 100 points. I don't see why Hughes can't get to those heights. The guy's a phenom on the power play, one of the best playmakers in the NHL. I think probably the goal scoring is what could hold him back. But at the end of the day, like I could see this guy hitting 80 assists in this season on its own. So like you said, he might not need to score the goals. I could see this guy, maybe not next season, but at some point in his career, I do believe he's going to crest 90 points.
There you go. One of the things I think with Hughes too that makes him different than guys like Josi or Dougie Hamilton is the shot generation, right? Hughes isn't a big shot generator from the back end there. So that's probably what's going to hold him back, but he doesn't need to be. They got guys to do that. They got Petey and Big Cousy. Oh my God. And Millsy, that beefer.
Yo, maybe an interesting point. Like, let's say Pettersson shoots the puck more, and I think that's one thing that he may do. I mean, he had that little clip on the internet saying that he wants to surpass 102 points this season. And if he shoots the puck more and he gets that first pass from Hughes at the top, maybe that adds a couple more assists to his total. I didn't watch any Filip Hronek play games last season. Again, casual hockey fan here, right, Trevor? How do you see Hronek doing this season with this set of talent ahead of him on the forward group? Like, again, I guess the easiest question is like, what do you have this guy projecting for points this season?
Yeah, Hronek's going to be interesting. Again, small sample size, and I don't think we can look at last season as a comparable, really, because it was a different situation for him in Detroit. For a lot of the season in Detroit, he was on power play 1. He booted Mo Seider the hell out of town and took power play 1 there in Detroit. So, a lot of his points were kind of bolstered by that power play time, and he's not going to get that here in Vancouver, right? But I do have him projected for 38 points with some decent periffs, right? So hit some blocks. And I just think if anything happens to Quinn Hughes, this guy's an auto ad, right? He's going right to power play 1 with the big boys. But that's not why they signed him, right? They don't need him to be as offensive as he was last season. They need him to lock it down, right? And I love the moves that Canucks made in the offseason here with Carson Soucy, Ian Cole, Bluger, and Hronek. Like, this is going to be a much better team defensively. But yeah, Hronek, 38 points. If he gets on power play 1 somehow, you can boost that up to probably 45.
Yeah, I just got to say, so Filip Hronek was probably the steal of my fantasy hockey draft last year. I got this guy late in the draft somewhere. No one cared about the Red Wings. I don't even know if half the guys knew who Philip Hronek was. And there he was putting up, what was it? I think it was 38 points in 60 something games. Like, he was on a great pace last season. So, like you said, going to be really hard to replicate that in Vancouver. But fantasy hockey aside, like you said, that's not what matters. I mean, the Canucks need Philip Hronek to be an absolute difference maker. It's probably not going to come in the points department, but my God, they made a big bet on this guy. They need him to deliver next season.
No, they do. They 100% do. And I was curious, I need to know like how other people viewed Philip Hronek, and it's sounding as if both of you guys look at this guy more as a two-way defender when reaching his peak, and that's what the Canucks ultimately need. Just more defensive skill back there. Blake, you did a phenomenal job. Okay, you're way better than Trevor and I at this. Okay, for real, man. You a fun guy. You a mushroom. And it's not
I'm a
surprising.
fun guy.
It's not surprising because, again, you got a little bit of Surrey in you, for real. Speak more about yourself before you end things off on Locked On Canucks. Plug whatever you want. Shout to Surrey, shout to Blake, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, boys. First off, thanks so much for having me. I love the content you guys are producing here, and I love the Canucks. Honestly, I always think about that Michael Scott quote, like from The Office, like, "No doubt about it, I am ready to be hurt again." And that's what the Canucks are to me, right? It's like, oh damn, there's some hope here. We're gonna make the playoffs this year. Like, oh god, no. But anyways, you can find me over on X, all right, at Blake Creamer AG. Also, you can check out at Apples Ginos as well. We are the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast on all platforms. You can check that out. And we're getting the biz on the regular. We also have a YouTube, so you can just search Apples and Ginos and get your biscuits in there. But thank you guys so much for having me. Really appreciate that. Keep up the good work, boys.
Thank you. You helped us out a lot today, and I think you saved a lot of people's fantasy hockey teams this year by projecting, some of the Canucks stats and whatnot. And man, thanks a lot for doing this. And I guarantee we'll see you down the road this season on Locked On Canucks. Okay. We back on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day. Kyle Bowen, Trevor Beggs, Komment Korner coming up in 30 seconds. Beggsy, before we do that, we got to shout out the dude again, okay? Blake Creamer, that guy is entertaining, man. Again, Langley, Surrey, Vancouver Island, native. He just got all that BC energy in him. And he put on a show for the people here on Locked On Canucks, and we really do appreciate it. If you want to have more fun with your hockey listening experience, the Apple and Ginos podcast, it's fun, man. It's a simulation. You know what I'm saying? You gotta sprinkle in some of that escapism in your life.
Oh yeah, 100% do. And that guy is an all-time beauty. Definitely one of the my favorite people I've ever talked to on a podcast. Kyle, you're up there too, though.
Yeah, it's okay if he's a little bit better. It is what it is. He just put on a performance. Okay. Speaking of all-time beauties from Surrey, R.C. Baines. He has the potential to be one of those guys. And somebody left us a comment that had me thinking about R.C. Baines and this season and the Vancouver Canucks. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Komment Korner, powered by Paraphrasing.
This comment is from our friend Dave.
I think the King of Surrey is going to get called up and play 15 games, put up 4 points, and bring energy on every shift.
Okay, thank you so much for the comment. And ultimately, another projection on a Canuck player this season. And this time the projection was the Surrey native, R.C. Baines, doing some things for the Vancouver Canucks. I know you're high on R.C. Baines. I know I am. We're both from Surrey. We got to be loyal to our brothers and sisters from this side of town, our neighbors. Where do you see R.C. Baines fitting in with the Vancouver Canucks this season? How many games does he play? Is he the first call up like Faber was saying? And what type of stat line does he put up?
Yeah, I mean, for me with R.C. Baines, I would love to see him shoot the puck more. Like, I remember he had maybe like 60 shots in the regular. He had like less than a shot a game almost.
Whoa.
He's just like playmaker first, penalty killer first, very complete player. I mean, if I'm going to put a number on it, I'm going to say he plays like 12 games for the Canucks next season.
Wow.
I think there's a lot of winger depth working against him, but I agree with Faber. I mean, that guy, obviously he knows his stuff and watches more hockey than almost anybody in the world. But I agree. I think RC was an extremely complete player, and if injuries hit the Canucks, he's going to be an attractive option because of his diverse skill set.
Yeah, and his intelligence, and when you bring up like his his assist total and like versus his shot total, like he's just a team guy first. And I don't know if Faber mentioned it in the quote that I used yesterday. I think he actually did, but like those are the types of guys, right? Like those two-way guys who are intelligent, who work hard, who, are somewhat team first. Like those are the types of guys that get called up throughout the season. And I think you bank on that because you don't want to project that you're going to, lose one of your offensive top 6 guys early on in the season due to injury. It's just the way it is. And I do hope R.C. Baines does get some game time. Maybe not necessarily because of injury completely, but because of alterations to the lineup. And I don't know if this is like a really bold thing to say. Maybe there's a little bit of bias because again, we're from Surrey, but man, oh man, if there's a guy who can like surprise people in training camp and potentially, push a guy like Podkolzin back to Abbotsford to start the season, R.C. Baines.
You know what? I don't know if he's going to push Paul Coles out of the lineup, but he's going to make it to the NHL, and it's going to be a big moment for Arsteve and the city of Surrey. Oh man, I can't wait for Arsteve to make his NHL debut. Guy is he's an even bigger. Oh, I shouldn't say. I was going to say he's a bigger beauty than Blake, but that's probably not true.
No, he is. He's like it's 50-50. You know what? If R.C. Baines plays 12 games,
leave it to the commenters.
If R.C. Baines plays 12 games, like you said, he's going to make a pretty good amount of money for a little bit, and then you can go tip the people at Cactus Club Scott Road a little bit more. For real, man. You got to help your neighbors out. For real. That was another episode of Locked On Canucks on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you streamed or enjoyed this experience. Man, oh man, it's your Canucks every day. On that note, tomorrow, I think we'll be uploading an episode that Trevor Beggs had with Locked On Kings. And then we'll end off the week on Friday with an episode potentially before we get back to full-time duty next week. Hockey is here. And man, oh man, Beggsy, I appreciate your time. Sign us out.
Hey, let's go. Shout out to those everydayers, the occasional listeners. And this is your first time listening. You came for Blake, didn't you? I don't blame you. But anyways, we appreciate you tuning in here at Locked On Canucks. Coming up, got to talk a little PTO stuff, training camp battles. Oh, we're getting close, babe. We're getting close. Young Stars coming up. Preseason, I believe, is 2 weeks away, maybe a little less. Woo! Let's go, baby. Locked On Canucks. We'll have you covered. But for now, I'm Trevor Beggs. He's Kyle Bowen. And we thank you for listening to Locked On Canucks.